her own. Everyone calls her odd, but she has only befriended this sword. She grew up until she reached the age of 12, becoming a true heroine. Then, she decided to travel the world and become the greatest adventurer in history. Follow to the end to discover the origin of the story. Our episode today of this new anime begins specifically at a lake called Chase Lake. A large crowd had gathered around it, causing quite a commotion. People were wondering what the fuss was all about. There was no festival or trial of a criminal taking place. So what was going on? Someone in the crowd said, "Look, the river has risen and carried a seed from the sea, which is now in the lake and spreading poison everywhere. It appears to be a poisonous flower fish that is contaminating the entire lake. It looks like some kind of octopus, turning the fresh water into salt water." Everyone was puzzled, unable to do anything. Who would help them now? At that moment, a girl named Belle arrived, catching everyone's attention. She seemed very strong, and people were talking about how she had been expelled from the city of Bark for causing trouble. Everyone looked at her in amazement, as they had never seen anything like her before. A perfect girl with no ears or horns. They had never heard of such a race, and she had no hair on her body. What a strange girl. Belle Lablack introduced herself and mentioned that she was there under the orders of her teacher, Exian Lablack. Mr. Farr thanked her for coming and pointed to the creature in the lake. Its numerous arms were thicker than tree trunks, and its bright red body repelled swords and spears. No one had been able to defeat it so far, and it spewed poisonous ink from its mouth. Belle said, "I know it well. My teacher told me about it. It is of the Negroni type, but I will confirm now. Its flesh is my favorite food." Everyone looked at her and exclaimed, "What savagery! Will she defeat it alone?" She then placed her heavy sword on the ground, cracking some of the ground, and began to take off her clothes. Mr. Farr asked her, "What are you doing?" She replied, "I'm lightening myself to be able to run smoothly and easily." Then she took off at great speed, even running on water. Her beauty was mesmerizing. She reached the center, provoking the monster, which grabbed her and pulled her down to the depths. When she saw it, she quickly leaped and cut off one of its tentacles. She then told everyone to step back as it was a Negroni monster, a very large creature. She drew her giant sword and began to fight. The battle was fierce, to say the least. Not only that, but she used an advanced feature on her sword, making its blade incredibly sharp, causing it to glow with great intensity. She launched herself at the monster, slashing and cutting its limbs into pieces. Then she dodged and struck again. But it hit her with a powerful blow, which she managed to deflect. She leapt to the top of the tower, and the monster attacked her from all sides. She struck it repeatedly, her sword cutting through it with its sharp blade. Everyone began to run, terrified, as the area started to collapse. She launched another powerful attack, striking the monster's neck. The monster screamed loudly, releasing a huge amount of salt water from its body. Everyone started running to save any food they could to prevent it from spoiling. The monster grabbed Belle, lifting her up. It seemed as though she was talking to it, asking why it had come here and if it didn't have a home. It raised its head and communicated with her telepathically, saying it wanted to return to the sea but couldn't, preferring to die here in peace. Before dying, it wanted to spread its seeds in the lake. Belle apologized to it and then delivered the final blow, tears streaming down her face. The seeds from the monster spread everywhere. After she defeated it, she picked up one of the seeds to keep it. Everyone thanked her for her incredible and heroic deed. She then asked them, "Do you mind if I take this seed and that limb?" Mr. Farr asked her why she wanted them. She replied, "Didn't I tell you before? I love monster flesh. It's my favorite." As the sun set, Belle left the place, taking out that seed from her pocket. She had taken it because she knew that they would destroy all the seeds. So she decided to keep this one. She planned to throw it into a river to ensure that the plant or creature could spread again, preventing its extinction. In the evening, Belle finally returned home and greeted her teacher, Zian, who was busy with his work and tending to the fire. He turned to her and asked, "What is that thing?" She replied, "These are the spoils of war, dear teacher." He praised her, saying, "A successful strike. It was skillfully cut, but you still need to learn to unleash your sword's full power in a single strike. What are you going to do with that piece?" She answered, "I will eat it like any other flower fish." An hour later, she prepared a meal from the Negroni's flesh. The tough skin took a long time to cook. They started eating, and the meat was very delicious, though Belle was annoyed that her teacher ruined the taste with too many spices. He ignored her complaints and added more spices. as he loved them. She then asked him why he thought the Negroni had left the sea. He replied, "As far as I know, it might have become unhappy living there." She said, "But it wanted to return to the sea again." He explained, "It was trying to fulfill its duty as a flower. It had to spread its seeds. Flowers are not alone in this. Everything in this world tries to interact with everything else." She began reading a book while Belle spoke to him from behind the door, saying, "They were all afraid of me. I think you would have done a better job if you had gone instead of me." He told her, "I am a teacher, not a fighter. I am here to guide you, and that is my role." She told him that they wouldn't be able to stay here for long. He replied, "Then we can move on. But there are still many places you haven't seen in this country." She asked, "Will we find people like me there?" He closed the book and said, "I haven't met anyone like you in my previous travels." Belle felt sad because she wanted to meet people like her. If she stayed in this place, the Void Army would eventually take her. People who could no longer enjoy this world. She would certainly be captured by them sooner or later. Her teacher said, "What you're feeling is what I call homesickness." She didn't understand the word, so Sion began to explain. It could be a love for your birthplace, a longing for an ideal city, or a painful inability to love yourself and where you are. She told him she didn't have a home to begin with, so her teacher suggested she go on a journey to change her surroundings and find some. He then told her there is no one like you in the land of Shure, the land of swords. But if you travel the world, you might find a place that truly belongs to you. Go to the city of Bark and take the test to become an adventurer. I know you can pass this test. Belle went to her room and pondered over these surprising words. She remembered her teacher saying, "Traveling means putting your entire being to the test. No one can help you. I might be your teacher, but I cannot become you." Back in reality, Belle acknowledged that their life together would end someday. She turned off the lamp to sleep, but at that moment her sword, Ronding, began to glow. She recalled what had happened to her in the past and shared the story of this remarkable sword. Everyone wondered who this strange girl was. She had no ears or tail and appeared featureless. People started hitting her, but she ran toward two individuals with large ears. Belle quickly fled towards a castle, entering and descending to the lofts. She searched left and right until she entered a room and was surprised to find a great sword bound in chains. She exclaimed, "I found a friend." When she placed her hand on it, the chains fell away and the sword glowed red. She quickly escaped as soldiers pursued her. As she fled, the sword began to speak, startling a soldier. She struck his sword, splitting it in half, and continued running. Another person stopped her, asking why she had done this. She replied, "That sword is my friend, and I will never give it up." They locked her in a virtual room with her sword. Back in reality, Mr. Farr and his group arrived with some food. Her teacher, Oxian, told her, "Rejoice, we won't have to worry about food for a while." Belle replied, "We need to talk now, Oxian. I want to take the test to become an adventurer, and I am serious this time." He responded, "It seems you have made your decision quickly. Go and fetch our swords." They went outside, and he said, "This will be your final lesson, my dear. You cannot become an adventurer without first being cursed. The curse can take many forms depending on the life of its bearer. This curse is your first test on the path to becoming an adventurer. It will continue to chase you during your journey. In my case, I cannot use my power for anything except teaching. Curses are inherited through the blood of adventurers. Are you ready for this?" She drew his sword and cut his finger, and Belle did the same. Their blood dripped, and they summoned a great power in front of each other. He asked, "What is the goal of your journey, my child? Tell us this goal out loud." She said, "I want to know my origins. I want to meet others like me. I want to interact with this world as well." Her teacher replied, "Congratulations." But she was startled and said, "Something is wrong, my teacher. Your face looks strained." He told her, "I know. This means you are about to complete your final lesson. You are disappearing now." He explained that she no longer needed him and had learned everything. "You will never truly understand my hidden motives. I trust you to visit the places I could never reach," he said. Belle felt a deep sadness and anger, crying because she would never see him again. She remembered when she was in prison, and her teacher had come to her saying, "Your parents won't come for you. So I decided to be a parent to you. Come with me and I will teach you how to use that sword." Back to the present, she was distressed about parting with her teacher. He told her one day, "You will understand the meaning of the word on your sword. It's one of the curses you will learn about later, known as a utopian city. Remember that word well. He expressed his love for her and assured her she would find a better guardian. This is your last chance. Kill me now so the curse can take effect, he said. With great force, Belle attacked him and killed him instantly. She cried intensely, but tears were of no use. She regretted her actions but knew there was no turning back. From that moment, she resolved to take control of her destiny and become the greatest adventurer on this earth. And so our episode ends here. Stay tuned for another exciting and strange episode. But before you leave, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss anything new. Our episode begins with our heroine, Bella, waking up and noticing that the ochre has turned blue. She tells us that she hasn't visited the forest of Marrow in a long time, but she never missed this place. Suddenly, a small rabbit named Rabbitia appears beside her. She is very amazed by its beauty and says that meeting a wandering Rabbitia is a sign of good luck. Then she lifts Rabbitia up and says, "You look so silly. Getting involved with this child seems like a bad idea." She gives him the cup and leaves. Bella then arrives in the city of Bark, where everyone stares at her, wondering who this girl is. She enters the market and heads to a restaurant to eat. The restaurant owner looks at her and tells her that she is a very beautiful girl. Bella asks him to bring her something to eat with some cold flower tea. The restaurant owner says to her, "Listen, country girl, we live by the set law in the city of Bark. Everyone here is destined for either good or evil from the moment they are born. If you defy this, you might end up dead." Bella asks him, "Are you mocking me?" She then tells him her name is Bella LeBlanc. The restaurant owner welcomes her and says his name is Haggis. Haggis then asks Bella what she knows about the city of Bark. She tells him that the city is divided between the good lords and the evil ones, meaning the people inside the castle and those outside it. Therefore, the set law wouldn't survive without this division. No one disrupts the balance and gets away with it. Haggis tells her that she must hurry and find out which side she belongs to. Bella tells him there's no need for that, as she plans to leave the country soon and become a traveler, which is why she came to the city of Bark. Haggis then informs her that the king who resides in the castle doesn't actually rule this town. Then suddenly something strange happens to Bella. Haggis asks her what is happening, and she tells him that she remembers the name of that king. It is Deus Ex Machina. She doesn't really understand the matter and says it's just something she heard from a merciless fool long ago. She then says to herself, "I killed someone." Suddenly, a group of guards enters with the small rabbit. The commander tells everyone that the rabbit ate his sword. Everyone draws their swords and decides to kill the rabbit. But Bella intervenes at the last moment and attacks them. Bella grabs her sword, uses her power, and attacks them, but during the fight, something incomprehensible happens to her. She defeats everyone and says, "What is happening? I feel like I'm swinging a piece of iron." She realizes this is her curse, and that she can no longer cut anything. Then we see the small rabbit eating one of the evil one's swords. The commander attacks it with his sword. When Bella is attacking him, Haggis stops her and says, "You've made your point, and we can see your skills and how brutal you are. You've done something that cannot be undone." In those moments, duelists from outside arrive, known as the Duelists of Good. Haggis asks Bella if she has an identity card, but Bella tells him that she doesn't have anything to prove her identity. He then tells her to leave quickly because she used a sword without an identity pendant, and they won't let her get away with that easily. She leaves money for the meal and goes outside, mounts a turtle, and leaves with the soldiers, seemingly captured by them. As she walks, she talks to her sword, saying it must miss the city, though she doesn't remember anything about the place except meeting it. The scene shifts to when they put her in a place awaiting her punishment. She talks to herself, saying, "This place is like where I met you, sword, when I was young. But I am very sad because I cannot cut anything. This is the form my curse has taken, and this is also the first test to become a traveler." She remembers waiting for a long time, hoping someone would rescue her from her predicament. She knocks on the door, hoping someone will come to save her. Then she gets up and scolds herself, saying, "What's wrong with you, Bella? No one will come to get you out of here." Staring at the door won't open it. She uses her sword to cut the door and steps out. A guard comes to her and she tells him, "The candle has gone out, as you promised before I entered this place. When the candle goes out, you will leave this place." She then asks him if he can call a duelist named Jaff, as she wants to see him. He looks at her in astonishment and the scene shifts to Haggis. Someone asks him, "Did someone break your sword?" As Haggis turned around, he found himself facing the masked man Adonis, with his strikingly beautiful eyes. Adonis approached him and asked, If it wasn't your sword that was broken, whose was it then? Haggis told him that some travelers were severely injured and are now in his room. Adonis asked for permission to see them to learn the full story, and Haggis granted it. At that moment, they heard screams from outside. What could be the matter? Did a fire break out in someone's house? But my friends, it was something different. It was the Void Army, and anyone caught by them would meet a dire fate. They resembled zombies or skeletons, looking very terrifying. Meanwhile, we see Bella, who went with Jave to his house, thanking him profusely for his hospitality. She couldn't believe she was now in this place, and he had also cleared her name. They sat at the table, and Jaff told her that her mentor had asked him to take care of her. He then gave her an identity pendant, but she needed to engrave her name on it. She took it and asked, "Why would an excellent duelist like you go through all this trouble to do a favor for my mentor? Was he that important to you?" Jave replied, "Yes, I don't compare to him even slightly." Bella apologized and handed back the pendant, saying she couldn't accept it because she was going to become a traveler. Jaff told her that she couldn't become a traveler until she made a pact with the king, and that she needed to serve this land for a period of time. She said, "Okay, but I am bound by a curse on my sword. I can't cut anything with it like I used to." He reassured her, saying, "Don't worry, everything will be resolved." Jave told her that this pendant would help her solve the mystery of her curse, as well as aid her in her travels. Bella felt compelled to accept the pendant from him and thanked Jaff for everything. She admitted, "I'm not used to relying on anyone, but since you made the offer, I'll accept all the help I can get." Suddenly, she saw the rabbit trying to eat something and was surprised to find it here. Bella realized that the rabbit had come to thank her. She told it that there was no need, as she had decided to intervene herself. Jave noticed the rabbit and understood that it was the cause of the commotion earlier. He said, "You should be proud to have this wandering rabbit as a guest." They exited through the castle gate, and JF informed her, "I will arrange a meeting with the king for you immediately." Bella thanked him profusely for all his help. They heard beautiful music, and Jaff explained that it was the music of the farm musicians. Bella felt nostalgic, as she used to train to this music all the time. The scene then shifted to Bella preparing a warm bath. She saw the rabbit and tried to entice it to bathe with her. They both got into the warm water together, and she tried to talk to the rabbit, but it didn't respond, so she hugged it. The scene transitioned to Bella and Jay heading to meet the king. Jaff mentioned, "You are the second person to carve this name," as she had engraved the name LeBlanc on the new pendant. Bella was surprised that someone else had written this name. Jaff explained, "It was you and your mentor." Bella felt bothered by this and thought to herself, "Why does he want me to see the king now?" She heard a voice inside her answering, "Because as a dueling musician, you must satisfy the king to complete the pact, and the doors to your journey will not open without the king's presence." The large doors opened, and they entered the grand hall called the Hall of Swords and Scales, where the king's throne resided. Jaff explained to her that the Court of Justice consisted of 3 theaters that formed the pinnacle of the land of Shuart, and this place was sacred to everyone. They arrived at an illuminated tree, and Bella was astonished to learn that the king lived inside this tree. Suddenly, the king appeared, and he was very unusual. The king was extremely tall, and inside him resided another person who was bound to him, a curse that had latched onto him. The king welcomed them and said, "This person bound inside me, you do not belong to any race, which might explain your lack of morals." Her friend Jaff signaled her to bow to the king, so she drew her sword, placed it on the ground, and bowed to him. The king asked who will participate in the ritual of the pact. Jaff responded, "The famous student of Inola, Zion LeBlanc, has completed her final lesson and has come to the city of Bark. Her fellow student is named Bella LeBlanc." The king asked Bella, "Why will you participate in the ritual?" Bella replied loudly, "To become a traveler to find my origins. I want to know who I am, where I come from, and where I must go. I want to find people like me, otherwise I will be alone forever." The king then said, "I will grant you a test to enable you to form a pact. Now you must sing the name of your instrument, my dear Bella." She raised her sword high with all her might. The king continued, "Your skills as a dueling musician will be tested. A duelist from your past, named Kier Royal, one of our 4 champions whose sword you once broke, will challenge you. Can Bella remember her past when she fights this warrior and champion? We will find out in our upcoming episodes. So stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell to receive all the latest updates." The episode of this anime begins at Drum's workplace, where Lay Black appears. She is surprised to see him because he is the last person she expected to see there. She then tells him that she heard that Belle, his little one, has finally left the nest. LeBlack replies that she is right because Belle cut off his arm entirely, and he barely survived. His body could endure the blow, but his sword couldn't. So he takes out his broken sword and gives it to her to repair. She asks him to give her one reason to fix the sword, to which he responds that she is the one who forged this blade and no one else can repair it. Drum then asks about Shandy, and he replies that Shandy is no longer a small child and will become the next prince of the revolution. She then asks another question about how to make sacred ash, and he answers that he suspects something, but has someone in the castle trying to discover the secret. Lay Black talks about Belle, saying that she will achieve everything they wish for because she is the heir to his teachings and the bearer of the sword he made himself. He taught her everything, and this will lead her to places they never reached. She is their dream child. Drum tells him that they will need someone who doubts logic. Black asks if she has someone in mind for this task, and she says that the Void Army has a very keen sense of hunger and that the principles of this land will finally be tested, including Deus Ex Machina. At the end of their conversation, Drum tells him that she will return his sword once it's ready. The scene then shifts to the sword arena, where we see the knight named Keir Royal, one of the 4 duelists who oversee the contract ritual. When Belle sees him, she remembers fighting him before and gets a little nervous because she is afraid of losing to him. She doesn't know if she will be able to break his sword after being cursed. Kerr then speaks, telling her that he created this new sword from the seeds of the one Belle broke. When his sword was shattered, he forged a new one, making it stronger. Belle pays no attention to his words and the match begins. She can overcome any obstacle as long as she has this sword. Belle attacks Keir, aiming to strike him, but he blocks her blow with great force. He then rushes towards her to hit her, but Belle quickly tries to cut his sword, yet she cannot do it. Belle makes several attempts to strike him anywhere on his body but fails every time. She becomes more anxious because of the powerful roar of his sword, but she knows victory will be hers. She then runs at full speed and strikes him, causing Keir to fall to the ground, but he is unharmed and gets up again despite the powerful blow. Keir becomes very angry and delivers a very strong blow with his sword towards Belle, but Belle manages to block the attack. She then throws his sword far away, making Keir lose the duel. Belle runs towards the sword and Keir keeps calling out to her not to do anything because he knows she will cut it. Indeed, Belle cuts the sword, which angers Keir greatly, and everyone is shocked that she was able to do it. Everyone objects to this act, which angers Belle. She tells them if they don't like what happened, they should come and fight her. Belle and Keir then go to the leader, who congratulates Belle for passing her contract ritual test and says she will be welcomed as a duelist. Belle tells her that she did not come to Park City to perform sword compositions. The leader responds that they are waiting for her to help with many things, including performing sword compositions during battles. They have given her a chance to meet, so she must watch the curse she was tasked with, and she will receive all the good things in the end. Belle goes to her room to rest a bit, accompanied by medics to treat her wounds. The masked one brings out the sacred ash to heal her. Gav arrives at this moment and applies the sacred ash to her wounds. Belle asks him to stop, saying she will take care of the rest herself. But Gav refuses, telling her that if she does so, the burns will leave a scar on her arm. The sacred ash leaves no trace of any wound. When Belle sees what the ash does, she is very surprised, as even the pain in Park City seems fake. Gav tells her he is very proud of her, as she fought well against Keir. She replies that duelists spend their lives taking care of their swords as extensions of themselves. The sword stops growing when it breaks and only withers afterwards, Belle said. If I can't cut people, I'll have to break the swords of everyone I fight. I don't harmonize with others. It's my usual state. After that, we see the leader talking to this man saying, "Will you sacrifice that girl on the altar of your own desires and seek revenge to bind your curse? You were born a priest and a royal, and you fled our kingdom when you became a wanderer. We understood that you returned either to bid us farewell or to try to destroy us. Now we will release you. Live as one of the dead, and no one will pursue a dead man." The man's mask breaks, and he leaves them to go away. The scene then shifts to a rabbit that transforms into a person when he eats this food. He says, "I understand now. This is Steinderweisen. Its taste is strange and disgusting." Talking to himself, he says, "I don't even need to recalculate. and orders the formulas to spread the news. We see these people talking. One person says, "We can bring our swords back to life with this thing," but something strange happens. He mentions that it tests the evil within them. The owner of the broken sword angrily says, "I will teach that rabbit and the shapeless monster a lesson they won't forget." The rabbit arrives and hears everything they are saying. "I see you don't learn. I heard you want to teach me a lesson. I'll need some mental math to deal with you." He uses fire magic on them, but they scream a lot because of the fire. The rabbit takes what he wants and leaves them. He sees this bottle and takes it. Then we shift to Belle saying, "That sacred ash is truly amazing. It's terrifyingly effective, but I'm glad to have it." Gav speaks to her, "You have recovered just in time. The evil duelists will attack the lower eastern region soon, targeting a place near where your parents live." Belle gets angry, saying, "Why didn't you tell me if you knew?" He replies this goes against the established law because the king is aware of the planned raid, but only the chosen duelists by holy summons will fight. Belle responds, "If we wait until they attack, it will be too late. I'm not waiting. I'm going to save my parents." Belle thinks to herself that Gav doesn't allow saying anything, but deep down he cares. Gav then says, "You will have to pay the equivalent of your sword's weight in gold coins." Belle rushes to save her parents but finds only her father and asks him about the town's inhabitants. He replies, "The outlaws took them out of the town." Belle goes to save them, thinking to herself, the outlaws don't have many tools and crops, so this will be a matter of life and death for them. She sees them and attacks with all her might, fighting them all and blocking their blows. The old man speaks, saying, "I have heard that a wild girl appeared in Park City, but luck is not on our side. I will eliminate you with this special spell," he says, and then casts a very powerful spell on her. However, Belle is able to completely negate it using her sword, astonishing the old enemy monster that she was able to cancel his spell so easily. She manages to defeat all the members of his army, and he decides to flee with his guards. Belle begins freeing the people and releasing them from whatever they were imprisoned in. Her mother comes to her, very happy and relieved to see her daughter. Her father also arrives. Very pleased with her return, Belle thinks to herself, "You look older, father." At that moment, a little girl runs up calling "Mom, Mom," and hugs Belle's mother, thanking Belle for freeing and saving them. At this moment, Belle learns that her parents had another daughter. Belle asks the little girl her name, and she replies that her name is Belmodo. Belle is very moved by this scene, and tears fall from her eyes. Her father tells her, "If you want to stay with us, we would love that." Belle tells them, "I am glad I had the chance to repay you for raising me. I will become a wanderer and will come back to you again." On another note, Belle wanders through the city and puts her hand on her necklace, only to find it missing. She realizes it must have fallen off during the battle with the enemies, or maybe one of them stole it. She feels sad but says, "No problem. I'll find it sooner or later." Meanwhile, we see the old monster walking with his soldiers, saying, "That girl was unbelievably wild." One of the soldiers is holding Belle's necklace, and the leader asks her what she has. She replies that it belongs to the wild girl, and she stole it because she felt frustrated as Belle was on a completely different level from them. At this moment, the rabbit appears to them and says, "I didn't come to fight you, but I want to ask you a favor." He points to the necklace, and they realize he wants the girl's necklace. The rabbit takes the necklace and goes to Belle in this form, asking her, "Are you looking for something, young lady?" She replies, "Nothing I won't find anyway." The young rabbit then offers to take her on a walk and introduces himself as Kitty. Belle introduces herself, and he tells her, "I know who you are very well, Belle LaBlack." She is surprised that he knows her name, so he tells her, "You used to take care of a boy named Kitty the Wretched. I wanted to express my gratitude." Belle is astonished and asks, "So, are you his brother or something?" He informs her, "All the rabbits in Rabisha are family in my homeland." Kitty then takes her to a place where all the wanderers gather. Belle feels strangely at home there and wonders why she feels this way. Kitty tells her, "I just requested a song." That woman on stage is a traveling singer who sings to make a living. Belle is surprised that she will actually sing and asks if he plans to plant crops here or something, saying, "You can't build anything here, so why request a song?" Belle is used to this sort of thing. He replies, "I don't need a song to create anything, just for entertainment and enjoyment at any time." The girl begins to play her piece and sing with her very beautiful voice. Belle starts to recall memories of her parents and her childhood, becoming emotional and shedding tears. The singer finishes her song, and everyone applauds, including Belle. Kitty says, "May the curse of our future wanderer become a blessing over time." That's my understanding of her song. The singer then greets Belle and she thanks her. Kitty tells Belle she can only speak when she sings. "I assume it's her curse as a wanderer." Belle is surprised by this and Kitty adds, "I assume you see that as wasted potential." Belle tells him, "I will never forget her song. She sang my little name, Belle." He asks, "Have you found what you were looking for? Perhaps your father also heard this song somewhere. A song for someone who will start their journey soon." Belle realizes that her parents heard the name Belle from that song and named her, knowing she would travel one day. Despite that, they gave her so much. Belle cries again, remembering when they taught her how to play music. She puts her hand on her face from the intensity of her tears. Suddenly, she finds that Kitty has disappeared but left the necklace on the table. She is overjoyed to have found what she was looking for. With that, today's episode of this wonderful anime ends. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes, but please subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell to receive all new updates. Our episode begins today with Belle at the king's court, where he is about to reward her for her recent battle. She had single-handedly fended off many duelists, proving her formidable strength and even causing them to flee. The king congratulates her, saying, "Congratulations, young one," and then bestows upon her a boon her sword will never bend or break. However, before this can happen, she must place her sword on a scale. After doing so, she takes her sword and leaves. The scene then shifts to Belle walking through the city streets with her teacher's friend. He asks if she has seen her parents, to which she replies that she has, but doubts she will see them again. Nonetheless, she feels relieved and refreshed knowing they are well. He then tells her about the 4 best duelists, mentioning that he is one of them. There is also someone named Tiziano, who is currently missing. "I don't even know if Tiziano is a man or a woman," he says. "She must be one of the mermaids, for mermaids can change everything from their appearance to their aura. If Tiziano has changed her gender and is hiding, we will never find her. She is very strong." Belle then asks about the other person, to which he responds that the other is a special case known as Adam. The scene transitions to the next day, where Belle is walking and hears sounds resembling dogs barking or cats meowing. When she approaches, she finds they are puppies and is delighted because they are so small and cute. She brings them a plate of fruit to eat. We then see Belle with her teacher's friend again. It is unclear whether this is reality or a memory. He tells her not to intervene when they see some soldiers beating a boy named Adonis, accusing him of being a damned sword thief and demanding to know where he hid the swords. Adonis does not answer or fight back. Shandy intervenes, asking why they are beating him, as this does not seem like a duel between swordsmen. They tell him that Adonis is not a duelist and will not be treated like one of them. He is struck again. But Belle is surprised to see that he does not look at them with contempt, but rather with pity. Shandai disperses them, and Adonis thanks him before leaving, leaning against the wall for support. Belle asks who started this trouble, and Shandy explains that Adonis took a sword from a recently deceased duelist after a battle, despite the relative's demand for its return. Shandy is unsure of Adonis's motivations, as he always takes swords from fallen warriors on battlefields and buys swords from those who abandon the blade. After that, we see Bebel sitting and drinking tea at home, wondering why Adonis doesn't wield a sword of his own. Is he unable to? She then remembers those gloves, which make him seem as if he is afraid to touch the sword directly. The next morning, Bebel arrives at a large building and finds a group of people yelling at Adonis. She quickly approaches them and says, "Wait, you are all ganging up on one person. Is that fair?" They are surprised and recognize her, saying, "This is the girl who defeated Kier on the battlefield. She was very strong." When she looked down at her feet, she found the bubs she had been playing with had been killed. She was extremely shocked, and a soldier said to her, "Yes, we were testing the sharpness of our swords." At that moment, the wild plants she had brought for them fell from her hands. The soldiers told her feeding those wild plants is useless. You can find bubs anywhere and they wither quickly. They pointed to Adonis and said, "This man lost his temper over some bubs. Look at him now." Bebel became very angry. Her body glowed, and she drew her deadly sword, facing one of the soldiers and knocking him away. The others then attacked her, but she struck them all down. Adonis watched in amazement at her strength, while she was furious about what they had done to the wild animals. She extended her hand to Adonis, as he couldn't stand up on his own, and he said to her, "This is the second time you've seen me in this condition." Then she saw one of the bubs still alive in the tree and apologized to it for not being able to save them from death, saying that this was their fate. She then asked Adonis for his home address so she could take him home because he was unable to walk. He leaned on her, and he asked how she knew his name. She told him that she heard people calling him the Sword Thief. About half an hour later, she had brought him to his home and to his bed. Then she sees very strange flowers called crow's flowers, and he tells her that they grow from corpses. He then calls his friend a strange creature named Bambo, who is said to eat itself constantly, so it never exists in one place. In those moments, something strange happens, and she finds herself in another place. She looks around and says, "Where is Adonis? There are no windows in this room. Am I trapped here or what?" At that moment, a door appears out of nowhere and he comes out saying, "Sorry, you can relax. My condition is pitiful." He then pulls out some magical bandages and wraps them around his arm. When he looked at her, he noticed that she was staring at him intensely. So he said, "What's the matter, my dear? Please sit down." As she moved, a table appeared out of nowhere with food and chairs on it. He said to her, "It seems Bambo likes you a lot." She then asked him, "Why do you take swords from others?" At that moment, many swords appeared, and he told her, "This is not all. I have more rooms here." She asked, "Have you added something to their enchantments?" He pointed to a question mark, saying, "For those who doubt, I can change any sword to suit me. This is my enchantment and my other name as well." He continued, "I pity the owners of these swords because they fought and then died, seemingly unjustly. I want to cleanse the world of those monsters and bandits. Also, remember when they killed those bubs? Don't have pity or mercy on them." Bebel thought to herself, "I bet this person is exactly like me in every way." She then reached out to touch one of the swords to examine it, but Adonis quickly stopped her and said, "Wait. As soon as I add my mark to the sword, no one but me can wield it because that changes the meaning of the enchantment." She thought to herself, "I was right. He can't wield a sword by himself." His reason and discontent are buried deep in his heart, shrouded in darkness, and I doubt anyone can reach them. Meanwhile, the creature called Bamboo transmits everything it sees and hears from the king's chamber. We then see and hear the king say, "Tiziano's balance tilts entirely toward evil. She has whispered into the ears of evil and incited it. She has vowed to attack goodness." Adonis becomes angry when he learns this about Tiziano. Bel inquires about her, and he explains that she is one of the top 4 duelists who has turned to the side of evil. She has a bad habit of seducing people, regardless of their gender, and then setting herself up as a prize to make her admirers fight each other. Gav couldn't tolerate this any longer and fought her, breaking her sword in a duel. Since then, she has disappeared and gone into hiding, but it seems she has now fully embraced evil and incited the downtrodden, vowing revenge against the lords. This is the result of her broken sword and failed test of goodness. She is the opposite of my story, he says. Bel asks, "What do you mean by her test of goodness?" Adonis replies, "There is only one way to repair a broken sword. I can't tell you the details, but the sword tests its wielder when used." Bel is amazed by this and asks how it is the opposite of his story. Adonis explains, "I originally came from the outside. Suddenly, they hear the king calling their names." Adonis tells her to get ready. Meanwhile, we see the teams preparing for a battle. Bel is at the forefront. In another scene, Bel and Adonis are in a room. He tells her, "You need to follow the art movements in this team battle. They are faceless." Bel asks him to drop that title and calls her Bel. Adonis jokes and changes his voice to mimic the king's, saying, "We will no longer call you faceless from now on, young one." Bel laughs and calls him a fool. At that moment, Gav enters, pleased to have found them together. Adonis asks him, "Is it true that you organize these combat teams?" Gav replies, "The selected duelists were horribly uncoordinated, so I grouped you into suitable teams as best as I could. The second team will follow you along with the final performance. There's no need to take down Tiziano on your own. Don't do anything reckless." Adonis responds, "This whole battle is reckless." Bel, confused, asks about this. Adonis explains, "Our battlefield is the catacombs, which the evil ones consider sacred ground, just as the good ones view the castle. They know more ways in and out than I can count, not to mention all the passages inside. The opening team will fight to secure our way in, and the downtrodden will resist fiercely. But do the good ones understand this?" Gav responds, That's why I appointed you to the first team. You, of course, know the place. Adonis asks Gav if he truly believes anyone will listen to him. Gav responds that failing to gain their trust could lead to his death. This angers Adonis, who leaves. Gav thinks to himself that the balance will change significantly. Meanwhile, we see the young rabbit boy saying to himself, "I think I need to be patient until the threads of fate bring her back to me," referring to Belle. Suddenly, LeBlanc appears using a magic spell and says, "I don't intend to harm you, Prince of the wandering land of Denari." The young rabbit boy replies, "I haven't heard from you in a long time, Princess of the wandering land of Schwerd." LeBlanc tells him that he no longer has a place to wander. The rabbit boy responds, "Don't speak like a man who reached my land with sheer determination, searching for the world's mysteries." LeBlanc says he came only to ask about the intention of those who flee from logic. The rabbit boy says, "I was sent to observe and judge logic. The phase of fleeing will come later, and if controlling its danger is not possible, I will kill her and anyone who knows her." LeBlanc replies, "But to leave this land, you must inquire about its logic." The rabbit boy explains that it all concerns Deus Ex Machina, a sacred symphony of iron and blood resisting kings. LeBlanc confirms this and says that many will fiercely attempt to control logic to the point of potentially destroying it at its inception. The rabbit boy states that he won't allow this to happen and asks if that is why LeBlanc came to him. LeBlanc answers affirmatively. The rabbit boy then asks why he doesn't go himself, realizing that LeBlanc is under some spell or curse that prevents him. He asks another question, "What does that girl mean to you?" LeBlanc responds, "She is like a crow flower growing from my body after falling into a play, carrying the corpses of words to heights I can never reach. She is my hope." Meanwhile, the army is advancing in full readiness. Belle and Adonis are in a carriage, and a warrior takes Belle's sword but cannot lift it, dropping it to the ground. Min picks it up and apologizes to the sword. The warrior tells the woman with him, "I could easily swing that little thing, darling." Belle wonders who these two fools are. Suddenly, the rabbit boy appears and tells them, "We are nearing the catacombs, so stay alert. I don't want any trouble, Belle. Maintain formation, and I strictly forbid any improvisation." Belle assures him that she will be cautious. The boy next to her, named Perry, a duelist, tells her not to let it bother her. He always finds someone weak to bully. Annoyed, Belle asks, "Who are you calling weak?" Perry replies, "Can't you see you're doing your best?" The warrior who had been carrying Belle's sword grabs another warrior and apologizes for not having time to take requests. The other warrior says he accidentally pierced the men in front of him and asks to be put in the vanguard. The scribe Gwyn agrees. Then a person wearing a strange yellow outfit remarks that this is reckless and they won't gain fame this way. "As long as you fulfill your duty, I won't need to report anything to the king," he says. Perry comments that his sword is bound and advises Belle to avoid attracting attention. The commander orders the first team to halt. Belle disembarks to see the place and is shocked by the stale air and the smell of blood. She asks about the vanguard team and then sees that they are all injured and controlled, their eyes red. Adonis remarks that they have no hope. Belle responds, "The vanguard team pities us. They expect us to take the stage and kill. This is no joke." Adonis tells her it's a cruel joke, a joke of the kings, and it's not funny. All we can do now is survive enough to mock it in turn. Now let the symphony of swords begin. Will they be able to defeat this powerful enemy? Find out in the next episode. Please subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell to stay updated with all the latest episodes.